maybe, your ICP is here, but it also could be all little like, the sort of like the Venn diagrams of adjacent. The other thing you have, which I think is really kind of fun, and this is what I love to do, is you have your outliers that you can't figure out where they come from, right? Sometimes they're just outliers and you should ignore them. But if you find a few of them that might look a little similar, but all look a little different, then there's a pretty cool little new pond to go fish that might have plenty of fish that you haven't gone after, right? So, how did they stumble into your product mix? How did they stumble into your content? What were they looking at? What do they do?
Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. All right, here we go. The curtain has lifted. The train has left the station. The excitement is about to happen. I've got the coffee. I've got the Celsius. And I've got the water. I am ready to go for today. Well, who are you talking to, Casey? Enough. Tell us about your beverages. Tell us about who your guest is. Well, you got to listen up. He's a marketing leader, a thought leader, a revenue driver, a growth architect, and a strategic visionary, all boiled down into one. What? I know. He's working with entrepreneurs, with marketers, with leadership teams. He's talking vision. They're setting goals. They're building just good stuff, growth. When it comes down to it, it's all about helping businesses scale. Imagine a guy like that I get to talk to for the next hour. Man, buckle up. 2-time CMO, CRO, B2B, B2C, B2B2C, you name it, SMB, Fintech, crypto, Web3, edtech, gaming. Can I say anything more about this growth consultant, Cruise & Co., Steve Gradman? Welcome, sir.
Wow. Thought you were interviewing someone else at first. So very excited. So thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to chit chat.
Yeah, man, you're a busy guy. So I'm going to shut my mouth over here and pass you this thing. It's heavy, but I've been working out, January and all. All right, here we go. Okay.
Gosh.
You want to grab that?
Yeah.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, he just backhand grabbed Thor's hammer.
Right. I got a big one.
Strength of giants over here. I got to get ready for this. Steve, take Thor's hammer, smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
You're not going to beat anybody performance marketing in 2025.
Damn, you're not going to beat anybody?
No, it's definitely not a plan. It's not a plan. It's not sustainable, and I wouldn't bet on it. If my Q4 of last year has been any sort of preview of what 2025 is going to look like, we're going back to my days when I was at CPG in the 90s, and it's all about being, real, being connecting. It's having relationship more than robots. You're not going to outsmart all of the technology that's come up and made everybody kind of equalize the playing field. AI and all these performance marketing tools have changed the world. And if you think that you're going to outsmart some little startup that's got some fancy little new tool, you're out of your mind. So what you can do is be real and be authentic and create content that's going to connect, because no one can beat you at that.
Damn. Okay. Shots fired. A bunch of performance marketers out there are just brushing up on their resumes. So talk to me, first of all, set the record straight on what performance marketing is, because I think there's a lot of misconception around that too.
Yeah. To me, it is all of your ROAS, your ROAS, whatever you want to call it, your Google, your search, your conversion, all your CAC, all that stuff. It's optimizing your funnel. It's all that sort of bottom of funnel conversion stuff. The last 5 years, everyone's pretty much optimized. And if you're not, then you got bigger problems and you probably really, really need it. But what I have been seeing is everybody's been so hyper-focused because, as a marketer, you've all of a sudden have access to tools that I only dreamed about in my 20s nowadays, right? I can actually get ChatGPT to completely just tell me what to do, right? And what's happening now is everyone's doing that. So the advantage is not, you had maybe an advantage if you were one of the first ones a few years ago, but pretty much everyone's caught up. And it took me a while to realize this. I will tell you, I don't do a ton of outbound marketing to get people to pay me to help them, right? Everybody in the last 4 months especially, has called me up and said the same exact thing. And we're talking education clients. We're talking people that are making products that are in grocery stores. I'm talking people that are selling loan products. Everyone has the same problem. A couple of years ago, I was growing like crazy. Our conversions were low, and we keep having to spend more and more for every conversion. I need someone to come in and tell me what's happening. And almost every single time, it's kind of the same. You kind of come in and you're like, okay, your funnel is you have awareness, consideration, and purchase. There's probably a lot more, fancier marketers put a lot more things in the funnel than that. And certainly I do as well, but like, that's basically the basics. We have been so far down at the little tiny tip for the last few years because that's where all the technology is. Nobody's feeding the top, right? And it becomes a drug. Your CFO and your CEO gets so excited because all of a sudden our CACs are going down, our ROAS is going up. It's an unbelievable, we're all drinking the Kool-Aid and like, how could this ever end? And then, what happens is everybody gets the same technology. Google kind of figures out how you're gaming the system and it ends. And what happened to the folks that hadn't been focusing on awareness, that basically took all that top of funnel spend and was like, why would I waste money here when it's performing here, are now having to kind of pay the piper and figure that out. It's an interesting reckoning because, you have a lot of younger marketers out there that are CMOs or marketing directors or whatever that never had to actually go do that. They've never, they maybe know what an ICP is, but they don't really understand what testing them out is and understanding what they're doing and where their purchase consideration is and what their buying triggers are. And they've really focused on robots over relationships. And it's an interesting moment. Like I kind of like, I feel like I was at as a marketing person was at a bit of a disadvantage coming up in the 90s and 2000s. But now I've done it. I did all that work because we didn't have all these tools back then. I know what the basics are, right? And it's almost like you're going to see this sort of for my next podcast with you, my miss will be that people that are old don't know what they're doing. Now all of a sudden they're the only ones who know what they're doing. So there's kind of a neat turnaround happening in the marketplace, which I think will be kind of fun to watch this year.
Yeah, I've heard people make jokes about, no one can actually build an iPhone, right? Because it's gotten so technical, it's spread around. Like no one can like get out some metal and some radioactive material and somehow piece together. Like you can't. It's just, and it's almost like marketing, to your point, has gotten the machine, right? I heard you mention all those different the mechanisms of marketing where we got obsessed with metrics, and now we don't know anything other than, oh, the numbers keep going down.
Absolutely. And I'm not that smart, right? It took me a few inbounds to realize it, right? And I'm like, oh my God, everyone's got the same problem. And that's the fact that they're not doing anything but focused on performance marketing. So, if you're selling a widget, they've already converted everybody looking for a widget. Now you got to convince people they need a widget. And that's a different sort of skill set sometimes if you've never done it, right? Putting yourself in areas where people might consider buying a widget. What do you say to them? Like it's a very different thing that a lot of these folks are used to doing. And especially these smaller companies, which is where I kind of focus, and these startups, that's a pretty big shift. And especially when money's tight, it's a really painful shift because you're all of a sudden investing in something a little less quantitative. It's a little more qualitative. And it's a big time roll the dice for some of these folks, and a lot of them are a little uncomfortable doing it.
Where does this come from? What's the origin of this myth? Is it just it was working at some point? I mean, why don't more people realize this is what's going on?
Well, I mean, it's because that's what they've always done, right? So if you've been doing something for 5 years, if you've had a company that, especially in my world, right? I deal with a lot of startups. I have a company that's 5 years old. That's like, as old as it gets for me, right? So these guys have started up and they created a product people needed, right? So when you create a product you need, you go feed all this stuff in your AI auto bidding machine. There's a billion of them out there, and they're all pretty amazing, to be honest with you. It tells you what to do, what to say, because it can actually go and figure out what the people that are looking for this product already, or people that have this need already, and they say, okay, convert here, convert here. The reality is you're probably living with this many people that are currently out there that have that need, and you're not generating new people to kind of fill the gap once you convert them, unless you have obviously a subscription product, and then there's other nuances and things like that. But that's for another day.
Yeah, but you definitely hear about that, right? You hear about the fact that there is a set number of people, and it's usually a really low, sometimes a single digit number of all the people in your market who are actually looking to buy right now. They're aware of the problem, they're seeking a solution. That and to focus on the couple percentages, man, there's a whole other ocean out there. But I can see how it's painful if you're used to shore fishing and now you got to go get on a boat. You don't even have a boat. You're thinking, how do I go get the big ones?
Right, right. If you fished out the harbor, you gotta find more fish, or you gotta restock, right? And actually, it's funny you bring that up. One of the I was at a networking event, and this someone else brought this up. They're like, we fished our pond out, and we never thought to restock it. And I'm seeing that more and more and more today. And it sometimes people realize it right away, and sometimes they're like, oh, it's a Google changed their algorithm, and we don't know what we're doing now, right? Um, and maybe there's some truth to that sometimes, but the reality is you have to take a step back and say, you know, did I even think about or misunderstand how many people actually need my product?
Man.
Oh, come on, I didn't blow you away that much.
No. There's a lot of place to go with this. What you mentioned the idea of being real, the connecting authentic. Is that like what's the solution here? Like I'm in. I believe you. I've seen this. So like, how do I address this? Like, people listening, they go, "Oh shit, I did overcommit to performance, and I have neglected the top of the funnel." What's your prescription here?
Yeah. So, the nice part about what got you into this mess is you have all the data typically to get you out, right? And that almost never happens, right? So, because of how, meticulous a lot of your bidding strategies are these days, because of all these tools you have, what caused people to, who these people are, where they came from, what else they searched on, how many times they clicked, what other content they might have clicked. And you can kind of create some hypotheses about your different sort of ICPs based on that data, right? And one of the interesting things that we've started working with a couple clients on is, okay, so you have most of your people like this. Now, let's figure out what's in common with most of these people that are your customer, and then what else they do to expand that sort of circle outside of that, right? Are they a certain gender? Are they a certain demographic? Or they live in a certain place? Are they a certain age? Do they have certain family situations? All those things. And then start figuring out maybe your ICP is here, but it also could be all little like, the sort of like the Venn diagrams of adjacent. The other thing you have, which I think is really kind of fun, and this is what I love to do, is you have your outliers that you can't figure out where they come from, right? Sometimes they're just outliers and you should ignore them. But if you find a few of them that might look a little similar, but all look a little different, then there's a pretty cool little new pond to go fish that might have plenty of fish that you haven't gone after, right? So, how did they stumble into your product mix? How did they stumble into your content? What were they looking at? What do they do? Come up with some journeys and some content flows that might expand your way of reaching those folks. And then all of a sudden, now you're starting to fill that awareness in the top of the funnel again, and look for all those little nuggets in your conversion metrics, and start figuring out, okay, who are these people that I caught by mistake that I can actually be a little more purposeful in getting out there. It's really about your ICP, right? It goes back to your MBA school, right? The clearer and more defined your niches are, the sharper your edge is going to be, right? So if right now you might be appealing to anybody searching your product. Well, maybe take half that money and appeal to some niches that are just kind of searching your product, and start encouraging them to do a little bit more. Make sure you're focusing on all those right audiences. It's not easy, and it's a lot of just combing the data for insights. The other nice thing is pop your data in ChatGPT these days. It might come up with a nugget you might never thought of, because it's looking at everything differently than you are, right? And so that's been really helpful as well. And finding some of these sort of tangents into your customer profiles.
I like that, and I definitely there's some apps that help with that. But I wonder if I were to further a guess that finding a niche and I don't know, niche or niche. What do you think?
I don't know. I think it's I think it sounds fancier when you say niche, but that's it's niche. Yeah, I'll wait for this to go up and look in the comments.
Yeah, look in the comments. Either way, I feel like that's the work that is some of the most painful work, and so easiest to avoid, and maybe go down some performance marketing rabbit holes, look at some stats, maybe implement a new app that does some cool retargeting, something for ABM, GTM thing, right? But man, ICP and refine. Let's talk ICP first, right? Are people getting that wrong? Are we just not doing it?
I think people aren't doing it, or they're doing it backwards, right? They're doing it from their conversions. And from your conversion is not your ideal customer profile. It's just your customer profile, right? I can still envision my marketing professor from business school yelling at everybody. He goes, "It's not what you got, it's what you want to get." Right. So you got to basically, if you're getting a certain customer, that's great. That's your customer, but maybe they don't have a high enough income. Maybe they're not, buying your premium product. Maybe they're not coming back around. So it's the key is to identify those people that are ideal, and maybe you never get them all, but at least you know what you're hunting for. Right. And it's a lot of that is kind of the bats, do you have the right product, place, division, all that stuff. And understanding, who these people are, what are their demographics, what are they doing, what are their hobbies, what are their interests, what are their habits, what are their buying triggers. And the buying triggers are typically different with every customer profile you have, right? You may have a product that appeals to a bunch of different profiles, and that when they need your product might be a very different situation. If you're offering, let's say, loan refinancing, which is clearly niche to some degree, because you have to have a loan, right? A buying trigger for one ICP might be, I have financial problems. A buying trigger for another one is, I actually have come into a lot more money and my credit has gone up, right? And so you have to make sure you're understanding where those different situations are, and you're putting relevant content that's ideally authentic and relatable in places they're going to discover it, right? So it's actually interesting. I talk about I work with a couple of financial companies and in these types of spaces. It's amazing. Like, someone might have the same product that is truly like, I'm going to get you out of a bad credit situation. And that's very much a female focused TikTok conversion situation. Or I'm going to take advantage of you doing all the right things, and your credit has gone through the roof because you're saving money. And that might be a very much a financial blogger, Wall Street Journal, the LinkedIn type of conversion. And it can be the same product, right? It's identifying those ICPs, having relevant content for them in the place that they're most likely to consume it, and then test if it works. Because now you have then you can go back to your old ways of trusting if those types of things work. But it's kind of a neat little departure from what I think a lot of folks have been doing the last couple of years, which is kind of just spraying and praying and knowing that there's plenty of people out there already doing all the work for you.
Right. Yeah. Backwards to go from what you have, not what you want. You had me thinking, talking through the ICP, is that the required reading? Is that the required work before niching down and finding a niche? You see what I did there?
I love that. Yes. I'm probably going to spend the next couple hours figuring out which one it is.
Should we Google it?
Yeah. I say, why? Yeah. Wish there was some machine I could look that up.
How do you say? Do you pronounce? Let's see.
I bet there's an ICP that wants to hear niche and an ICP that wants to hear niche. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, for sure. Well, niche or niche? There's a debate. Two common pronunciations. God, totally both. It's saying both.
Yeah.
Oh, niche is more common.
Is it?
Yeah, niche. Oh, niche is now the more common pronunciation.
Let's look at that.
In the world. Oh, okay. US niche. Worldwide niche. It's like soccer versus football,
Yeah, fair enough. All right. So we should probably say niche.
Is ICP, you got to do that, and then or can I just
think what you just did there, right? That's a good example, right? You just realize that, okay, I'm saying, if I want to sell if I want to sell this podcast to people, and if my audience is in the US, you and I should stop saying niche and say niche.
Yeah, I should. Dang. Dang. Unless it's one of those things where, US, we love hearing those British speakers,
That's true. That's true. Aspirational.
I'll do the host show in the British accent and then they'll all love it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. You should drink some tea.
Like CEO diaries all over again. Um, so yeah. So tell me, do you encounter folks that, they're trying to sell everything to everyone? And then how do you approach that? I struggle with niche too myself,
Yeah, it's like getting someone off drugs. I'm assuming. I've never actually done that, but I'm assuming this is how you do it, right?
Man, this is the hardcore marketing show. I
It
love
is
it.
hardcore. Right. We're covering a lot of stuff here. It is, this has been a drug that has brought you so much joy and happiness over many years. Typically, the party always ends. And if you can get people to realize, okay, you haven't changed anything in years, and you have all of a sudden your conversions, it used to be you were spending this much and you're converting this much, and now you're spending this much to convert this much, right? Most CFOs, CEOs, CMOs pretty much get that. And let me tell you, it's in the back of their mind already. They're just scared like everybody's scared to pull the trigger, right? And so like finally, a lot of what people bring in consultants or mentors or whatever to bring in is to kind of give them the permission to do what they think is right, and then kind of hold their hand and bring them through that process because they've done it a bunch of times, right? And so, I've seen it both ways. Where I walked in, I saw it with one company a few months ago where they were like, "Damn these Google people with their algorithm changes! How dare they?" And literally, it took me 2 weeks to kind of just go through the data with them and finally bring them around to see it. And then, I was with the finance client literally last week where they were like, "Oh my God, why didn't we stop this sooner? Like, we're just like, what are we doing? We're just feeding a beast, right? Eventually there's going to be no one left less to convert. And we're not doing anything to create new customers or and our competition, while we were super innovative when we came into everything, they have completely they've caught up. Once you start beating your competition, they're going to look at why, right? And if it's because of your better performance marketing, they're going to get better and they're going to drive up the cost of every bid, every ad. And it's just not sustainable, right? And if you don't have competition like that, you're going to soon, because everyone's going to see this market, right? So it finally was like, in the back of these guys' heads, they're like, "Oh, you're right. I know. I've been scared that this was really what's going on, but I'm scared to pull the trigger, right? I don't want to tell the board that we're making this big change and all this stuff, because they're not going to take the time to understand it." So, there's those types of situations. The ladder's a lot easier, when someone's kind of already knows what's going on. But the beginning's kind of I love the challenge of changing people's perceptions, right? And they realize the one nice thing about folks that don't realize this is happening is they typically haven't been doing anything wrong necessarily. Like, they've been doing the right things with the data and the strategy they have. They just haven't taken an outside in look at what they were doing and said, "Okay, well, maybe we need to alter the way we're going," right? They're usually pretty good at performance marketing. And their biggest fear when they're pretty good at performance marketing, but their sales are going down, is that their competition is just gobbling up all those, what they're stealing share from them. And typically it's kind of hard to tell, but typically it's not necessarily the case, right? And you can kind of back into some of the data that would tell you that everyone's having the same problem. So you need to do something else.
Yeah, you don't want to just keep repeating. Like, that's insanity, right? We're not just going to keep repeating the same marketing. Insanity marketing.
Insanity, yeah. That's a good part too. Yeah, maybe that'll be my podcast.
You know what? That might be a good one, actually. Insanity marketing. You could just rant and rave about people who aren't aware of the problem.
That would be kind of fun. Just everything that crashes and burns. Interesting. All right.
Now the question was, would you have people on there that know there's it'd be kind of fun, but also scary to have people have the aha moment in front of you on the podcast and go, "Oh no."
It'd be kind of fun.
Actually, it would be, right?
Yeah. I mean, assuming I'm right a lot, I don't know. If I'm wrong, then maybe it wouldn't be that fun, but it would be kind of interesting. I don't know. I'm actually going through my head, my last few clients, and I've had those moments, and yeah, that would make for good audio. I'll tell you that.
That would make for good audio. You've already had some great sound bites already, I just need to make sure I have your permission to use that. Relationship more than robots. I'm going to quote you every time.
Go for it.
I love that, right? But talk to me about connection. I've been just obsessed with connection, and because I too was in the marketing automation world, and I just like, man, this is lame. I've lost track. I don't know anything about them. I have no vision for them because I don't know them, and I just wanted to connect with them again. And podcasting is my way of doing that. But like, talk to me about connection in the future.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, and you see it all the time, I'm sure too. Like, and one of the great things about one of the things that makes podcasting and these types of back and forth amazing is that AI can't screw it up, and no one's kind of like no one's going to watch what we're doing right now. At least I hope not, and say they're reading AI prompts or they're reading off of ChatGPT, right? Um, I would tell you that when I go on Twitter and LinkedIn and when I go and watch TikTok and everything else, my BS detector, while it used to be about here, in the last 24 months or 12 months has gone up to about here. I don't buy any of it, right? And there's a couple things that I've noticed, like, there's a couple like there's a few words that ChatGPT loves to use.
Yes, and then the automated voices, they get the dumb simplest words wrong. Like, not like, "Hey, I've learned English," and, no, it's something that everyone knows, and they get it wrong. You're like, "Okay, that was some computer saying that." I hate that.
It drives me insane. And then and you look at posts and there's a certain sort of like very AI-ish sort of format that goes like, it has like a lot of different types of emojis that lead out the bullets. There's a couple keywords that are very AI-ish. And it's automatically turns someone off. And what's amazing is, I was talking to someone today that's a really big LinkedIn he's like a super connector. That's his whole job. I don't know how he makes money on it, but it's smarter than me and it works. Right. And he actually is he's another type of person. He's like, when I put something in Grammarly tells me it's wrong, I leave 2 or 3 mistakes in every one of my posts. Right. Cause I want everyone to know that it's equal. And I was thinking like, what does the world come to when you actually have to show vulnerability and not be so good at what you're doing to prove that you're not using a machine to do it for you, right? And it's that sort of like, taking that type of time and effort with your consumer that I think is going to connect with people. And that's why like short form video, I think is going to be a big deal. I think it's really hard to break through on TikTok right now, but if you have engaging content that's coming from these sort of, I would call them like, I'm really excited about like the opportunity for being a micro influencer, right? Like a real person to do something very, that maybe has, a few hundred people as a follower, just their friends and family. Like those are the types of opportunities to be authentic nowadays. These sort of monster influencers are kind of like the AI stuff. Did you know it's all BS now because they've actually converted all the brands in the bottom of their funnel. They haven't maintained authentic connections and things like that. So I think there's a lot of things going there. I think that the human element is going to come in a lot more. People are going to start, people trust people. They don't trust just random posts. So like you can't be a faceless brand. Your social media person has to be a person, right? They can't just be the brand anymore. Your CEO can't just retweet and say stuff. They've got to be, as much as, love them or hate them. Elon has unlocked what a CEO has to do, right? I don't agree with a lot of things he says, but I do agree with the fact that he's passionate. You know exactly who he is. I honestly believe he's the crazy person tweeting all this stuff, right? Um, so, create that sort of like, don't just be a faceless brand, be someone, right? Be someone. And you're going to hopefully connect with a lot of people, and you have to be okay with not connecting with some other people. Don't say anything super stupid or controversial, but like, have an opinion on things, say things that are real, say things that might, resonate with your ICPs out there, and go ahead and do that, and know that it's going to come up on a small basis and feed into the overall algorithms. But relying on Jasper to spit out 500 posts, and they do a great job, but like that's just one tool, right? go and take those and, Jasper, I don't want Jasper hating on me. But, go and take those and make them your own.
Take that, Jasper. Shots fired.
That's right. But call me, I can probably fix it. Take that and actually make it yours, right? Take it as an idea and say something that makes it human, right? And makes it real and has that connection, because that's going to break through the clutter, right? Which I think will be kind of interesting. There's some brands I've started to see, a lot of the startups are really focused on putting their people out there. And what's amazing, I know you're a big EO person. I've just gotten introduced to the group here in Chicago, maybe 3 months ago.
Okay.
And I've tried to follow everybody in my EO chapter that I met, right? Which isn't a ton of people yet, because of the holidays, right? But what I've been noticing that's kind of amazing is, and there's a few out there. There's a lot of folks out there that are really taking the time and being vulnerable and putting out little videos of themselves, and they could have a $1 million or $10 million company, and taking that vulnerability and putting it out there and creating like an authentic connection with people, right? They're really showing who they are, and you're giving people a chance to really say, this isn't just some random company. That's a real guy. It's a real person. I'm going to go buy this from them. And if it's wrong, I'm going to hit them up directly or something. I get what they're doing, right? And that's different. Not a lot of people are able to do that nowadays. And I think the large companies are going to struggle to come back around and battle some of that, because, I don't know if you ever worked at a Fortune 500, the challenges of getting any content approved quickly is not easy. And a few of them are doing okay and focusing on those types of opportunities, but they're going to have challenges along the way. But I think that the small company can kind of create this authentic connection and outmaneuver some of the bigger guys. They're not going to outmaneuver it in performance marketing. They're not going to outbid anybody. So
right. That's the place to compete where you can win there. I mean, my question, I think sometimes this is the challenge that you might often get when you talk connection. We're connecting right here. This is awesome. Podcasting is great, but is it scalable? Can you bring connection to the masses? Especially as you mentioned, Fortune 500, they want just a few leads more than everyone. There's some big numbers people are trying to hit. Back to the numbers, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, everything's scalable because you're going to make more money, right? So you can throw more resources in it. A lot of that is making sure that your organization is scalable, right? One of the things I do at Cruise & Co. is we help with a business operating system. And one of my favorite tools that we help people with is, it's called the role map. It's kind of basically an org chart, right? And the neat part about it is I've always made org charts of who reports into who. And I've started working with my clients and help them say, okay, it's not about that. It's more about, what is this person in charge of delivering? How are they accountable? How are you going to measure? That's the goal. That's the role, right? And then the people that feed up into that are feeding up into those sort of requirements. And you can have the role, you can have your org chart or role map or whatever you want to call it for today, and then know, what you're saying is okay, we're going to make this change. We have to build a content team, right? Because I've never made a blog before, or I've never actually gone and tried to really focus on 50 ICPs or whatever. Well, maybe that's 4 different ICPs. I never even focused on an ICP, right? So, you basically say, okay, we're going to start, and this is what our organization, what we want to deliver today. And once we deliver that, we want to continue to scale up. And you know what? In 6 months, this is what it has to look like. And so, when I talked about people are, I come into organizations and people know in the back of their mind, they already need to do something. And I just kind of enable that. All of a sudden you have that already done because you already thought about it. And it's an easy thing to continue to build up your team to feed in that success. So then it doesn't become hard to scale because you're already ready for it and you expected it. It was part of your 1 and 3 year plan. You had it well laid out, exactly what you needed. And then you can pivot a little bit on, some things take more and less time, but you've already kind of made those hard decisions that when I hit this, we're going to actually look like this. And then once you move to that next one, you say, okay, well, to unlock the next $1 million of revenue, we have to add X, Y, and this much more. And when we do that, then our organization needs to evolve into what that looks like. So then it's not necessarily putting out fires and oh, I need another guy to do this, or this person's overwhelmed. you're already thought through a lot of that, and you're kind of unlocking your growth as you go, and you don't have to argue about it. That's the biggest thing.
You do have an answer for everything, man. I'm excited. That's cool. That's been one of the big things is just the scalability around that. So yeah, let's scale that connection, man. 2025, like the year of the connection. And it's always supposed to be that, but I think people are going to start noticing, to your point, all these stats are indicating, hey, this is not the place. Over here, over here. And honestly, I mean, it just feels better doing connection marketing than it does doing all that other stuff. A lot of marketers can probably relate to this, but you do a bunch of performance marketing campaigns. You don't really necessarily know if you help the company out or even help the people out. It's so abstracted that you just feel like they're almost like they're lab rats and you're just a scientist. And what am I even doing?
Yeah, the lab rat one was interesting. I always, you spend all your time, the mouse is going in the maze, right? And they're going to go to your competitor, right? And you're not doing anything to differentiate yourself from the competitor. You're just doing something to encourage them to go down your path. You want to be one spot above them on the search results. You want your ad to be served first, right? That may work at the moment of truth, but once there's no more mice coming down that maze, then what?
Yeah. Yeah. What are you going to do then? And it's just like, not everyone gets a job in the Peace Corps, right? Or, at a homeless shelter or a soup kitchen. But I think everyone generally would like to feel like they're making a difference, and it can be really hard when the customer is abstracted into a number, a number inside of numbers. And then, hey, this guy's name is Jeff. What's up, Jeff? And Jeff is like in pain and he's feeling like he's going to get fired because he's not eating this stuff. He needs help, you know? Steve helped him, man. Like now he's got a promotion and he's taking his family to Disney, being like, man, you did that. Like it feels so much better to connect with people.
Absolutely. And here's the best part. What you just said, that is your best marketing. You take that story and you turn that into content, right? Like versus like, you converted Jeff. You don't really know anything about him. You can't turn him into content. All of a sudden you can say, here's Jeff. He's like, and you put him out there and he's like, oh my gosh, Jeff is me. I should do what Jeff did, right? Because this company helped them out of this situation and that's relevant to me. And that broke through because Jeff is, a referral is so powerful, right? And, it's an unbelievable situation. It works for B2B too. We were just going through I worked with a couple of agencies, and one of the agencies is really struggling with getting business outside their little network of friends, right? That they've used before, right? Always a challenge with small B2B agencies. And they just never really realized how powerful their referral. I mean, they're so good, but they're the best kept secret, right? And I'm like, you need to basically take these stories of your amazing customers who basically would do anything for you. And you've been at every single company along their career journey and turn that into content, into marketing and help them help you out, help, talk about those messages. Cause that relates, right? As when I was a CMO, I have my little Rolodex of people I know, love, trust, and owe favor to because they went above and beyond. So I make sure they get the business, right? So, but I'm always on the lookout when someone says, oh, you've got to use these guys, right? That there's nothing more powerful than that, right? We were even talking, I sent someone your name, we were talking before the show, right? That is so powerful, right? That's way better than just, an ad, right? So that's not part of the conversion funnel. That's not part of performance marketing. That is leveraging your existing as sort of as a marketing and content and real opportunity there.
100%, man. Well, my next question really is like, who are you? Who are you? How do you know these things? Take me back in time. Little Steve. Did little Steve know he's going to be a thought leader and marketing wizard and helping entrepreneurs and businesses scale and grow? Like, take me back in time. What was it like, little Steve?
Yeah. Good question. Wow. Let's go back in time then. So I'll tell you what my the thing that set all my whole career off. When I was in college, I was in student government because I thought I had to have an activity. Right. And, I think, sometime while I was there, I was like, I could run this thing. I don't know what happened to me. I'd never in high school been that guy or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to run for president. So I became student body president at the University of Illinois, which is pretty cool, right? In college. It was really fun. It was neat, right? But that was a moment where I was like, I feel like I have permission to kind of do anything, right? I can go do it. And I kind of pulled that through my whole career, right? And from there, I worked in the auto industry and I did pretty well there. The auto industry is a little soul crushing, but I was called on dealers. I was, and which was really, if you want to, and that's where I kind of learned, you know, I can help people make big changes. And also I need to go and do the homework to help to understand people's businesses. And I also learned that I love understanding people's businesses. There is nothing more interesting back in the day. And this is before Nissan. I worked at Nissan was my first job out of college, Nissan North America. Right. And that was before Nissan was a bit more of a bargain brand as it is now. And they're having some challenges. I'm sure they'll, I have a lot of friends that still work there and they all say they're going to be fine.
Nissan.
Yes, yep. There you go. But I wouldn't, I was very lucky to get, to be their parts and service rep for the Minnesota, the Dakotas and Iowa, not a Japanese brand's, home base by any means. I would go and call on Chevy dealers that would have a vinyl Nissan sign on the side that would put out 250, Silverados a month and maybe 5 Nissan. And one of the most interesting things was I would had to understand exactly what makes them tick, right? Like I'm coming in as basically a fly on the wall. Like we needed them for probably more than they needed us, right? We needed the sales point, the service point. They just kind of were like, all right, fine. Well, maybe we'll get a little bit of service business out of it. So, understanding that, putting myself in their shoes and then finding those nuggets where I think that they can either work less hard, which was very compelling to those guys, or make a little bit more money, also very compelling within our current business model, which, one of the things that we worked on oil changes and they never really focused on parts, which, up in snowy Minnesota and North Dakota, there's a lot of fender benders. And a lot of these guys were getting eaten alive by some of the larger Nissan dealers who would just ship them into body shops. So they're focusing on things like that. And just kind of understanding, coming at them with a real human connection of like, I get your business. You don't want to see me. I can't buy you enough lunches to make it interesting to get for the Nissan parts rep to come in, right? Versus the Chevy guy, right? So I got to come in with something a little more. And once you do that a couple of times, you prove yourself, and then all of a sudden you become an advocate, and then they kind of let you do that. And I kind of pulled that sort of, and I worked for GM doing something similar after that. I went back to business school, which was fun. And then I kind of got I worked at Kraft out of business school and Energizer and Rubbermaid and just went through the gauntlet of like marketing stuff. And then I started getting some cool jobs finally, right? So then
cool brands and then cool jobs.
Yeah. Those were those were really fun. I made some great friends there and they worked on really, really fun brands. But like, then I ran my own little software company back in the, and that was one of those times where I'm like, all right, I'm going to go find a niche and really exploit it. And this was back in the first iPad days. I launched, probably one of the first 25 educational app games in the iTunes store, right? I was ready. I was yacht shopping, thought I was going to be rich beyond my wildest dreams. And then, Nickelodeon and Disney came in and destroyed the market for everybody, before they were in the business, but, pivoted and got myself out of that. But I've always kind of loved that sort of small business and that fighter mentality. So from there, I worked at a couple of, worked at Becker. I ran their sales and marketing. I worked at a company called Excel Entertainment, which was a casino company, which was just a wild ride. We IPO'd there. And then I was in the crypto industry with a company called CoinFlip, which was really cool. We doubled revenue. We did all these great things. And then obviously we had a big product challenge and that kind of went south a little bit, which, unbelievable successes and crazy flame outs. So I've seen it all, right? And I've dealt with so many different types of people that I typically at least have a cliche or an anecdote that kind of helps me relate to what's going on and usually helps me dust off maybe something that folks haven't thought about or helps me or have given someone a little bit of confidence because I've been there before. Right. And it took me a while to realize I could do that pretty well. I was kind of took some time after my last CMO role to kind of figure things out. I was helping a couple of people, small companies. And I was like, this is kind of fun. I should just go do this. And so that's what I do now. It's kind of a neat little job. And I found the folks at Cruise and Co. And they have what I didn't have, which was a really neat process and tools and things like that. So I can help. That helps me sell and be a little more organized in the way I kind of come in with an operating system, and really allows me to work. The best part of my job is I can spend Monday with an aviation company, Tuesday with a finance company, Wednesday with a company making a consumer package good, and I love that, right? It's a really neat kind of way to earn money and send your kids to college.
Yeah, I mean, all that expertise and experience, and couple that with, I definitely heard that passion for just like, I love learning about companies and like what makes them tick and who are their customers and who are they really? Who loves this thing? Who raves about it? You know that pickle brand? Have you heard about that pickle brand?
Which one?
Grillo's. Have you heard about those guys?
No.
Grillo's pickles.
Okay.
Great example of it.
Not a big pickle guy, so I'm going to write that
Not
down.
a pickle guy. Okay. But if you have people that you meet, you go, okay, these are not normal pickles. Somebody told me about it. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. But they go, no, Casey, really? These are those pickles. And I'm like, what? Okay, tried them? Yeah, they're right. They're right. It's insane. And so you end up talking about it on a podcast like this, right? But yeah. So it's like, that's what you're looking for. I love that you're creating that kind of an experience for helping them harness it. They already have it somewhere, but they don't know. So they got to connect to their customer and find out. Man, it's so cool.
The pickle people, right? They did it. They found they found their ICP of super passionate people, and they can't stop talking about the pickles, and they got to you, and now I wrote it down. Like, this is how it works.
They have t-shirts, and I'm contemplating getting one, right? Like,
well, a lot of people are.
It's that good. I'm sure a lot of people have, or maybe a hat, and then if somebody saw that hat, they'd go, yep. If they don't know, they don't know, right? But if they would go, yep.
Yeah, Vlasic can't do that.
Cannot compete whatsoever. And I don't think I'll ever eat another pickle from any of those other people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good deal. You should be getting some free pickles after this.
Yeah, it's a show. The show sponsored by. Well, hey, hypothetical question for you next, because man, all these things put together, combined. Hypothetical, because you see, I may or may not have a time machine here in New Hampshire, right? So you come visit, hang out with Eric, shout out to Eric Cruz, but then we get to hang out after that, get some beer, some lobster, and then we use this time machine, right? I have one. It's in the backyard covered in a tarp. So we use the time machine and we go back in time. And you get to meet yourself 4 days after graduating with that poli-sci degree. And you can talk to yourself and tell yourself anything you want to say. What would you tell yourself?
Don't be afraid to tell people that you think what they're doing could get better. Is to make sure you do it with respect. Don't sit there and stew. I think that leads to a lot of different things, right? When you think that things could be better, and you can be right or wrong, right? You end up kind of living in your own world of regret and neglect, and you end up not rooting for yourself, for your people you work with and your company. And I have caught in that trap of just not having the confidence to at least respectfully voice, like, hey, what if we tried? Have we ever thought of, tell me about like this, you have to be respectful when you're starting to be a little inquisitive, especially if it's 4 days after I graduated, but it changes your whole outlook. Right. And I remember there's so many jobs where I've sat there and I'm a competitive person. I got a lot of passion and it's good and bad. Sometimes I control it well, sometimes I don't. Right. And I remember like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And you start blaming all the people you work with, and then all of a sudden you stop rooting for them. Right. And the minute you get out there and say, and have that sort of conversation with those folks respectfully, and say, why are we doing this? And sometimes you're the idiot, right? I'm the idiot all the time, right? I was like, oh crap, I didn't think about that. You're right. And when you're younger, especially, or new or things like that, you're scared to say that stuff. it changes everything. Open communication, being understanding why you do things helps you have understanding of why other people do things. It helps you have respect for everybody, and it doesn't let you sit there stewing, hoping that they don't do well because you think they're doing it wrong. And that's, someone I worked for, I can't remember who told me this. I think it was some of the auto industry because they're full of cliches. But they are like, if you aren't rooting for everyone on your team, you're not on the right one, right? And it's like, it's one of those situations where if you understand why you're doing what you're doing and you're bought in, then you don't have those sort of situations where you don't get along, you're not worried about other people, and you're staying focused. And I wish I kind of had that sort of mantra early on in my career, because you know what? You kind of sit back when you're young, you're like, oh, I guess this is how we do things. It's so stupid. And you don't take the time to understand it all the time. And sometimes you might be right. More times than not, you're probably wrong. But at least you're not having that sort of moment of doubt, and it's holding you back in a number of different ways. So that's what I would tell myself.
Powerful. Do you think yourself would listen?
Nope, not at all. I know. I don't know. I'm shocked that sometimes when I listen to things, but no, I think that I would listen a little bit. It's still really hard to do that when you're young. But I think one of the things that I might is that sort of understanding, like, don't be afraid to ask or challenge things, because that'll help you understand why people do what they do. And hopefully I would have listened to that.
And also it's not coming from your parents, so you maybe don't have those automatic rejection, detectors up. You're just like, some guy, was I guess you could identify yourself. Hey man, it's me from the future.
If I'm not going to listen to myself 30 years later, then I don't know who I'm going to listen to.
Right,
I guess.
exactly.
Would you have listened to yourself 4 days after you graduated?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure. Yeah, I think so.
Did no one ask you that? You ask that every podcast. Come on.
Yeah, no one's asked me. They've asked me what I would tell myself, but not if I would listen to myself. And yeah, I think I would. I mean, easier said than done, but yeah, I think I was definitely hungry and exploring and learning. Hadn't quite figured out where my niche was.
Right.
So I was still, I did computer science, right? So I was off in nerdland and going, I love people. I was like, code is cool, but like, where are the people? So yeah. Hey kid over here.
Right.
You should look into marketing.
It's got to be in the alley wearing a trench coat, of course.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Hopefully clothes underneath a trench coat too.
Right. Yeah.
Hey kid, you want to buy a watch? You need to go into marketing. What? Yeah. Well, hey, this has been a fantastic conversation. People hearing this go, I need a little clarity in the vision. Maybe they just need, like you said earlier, someone to come along and say, yeah, niche down, man. You got this, right? How do they contact you? How do they get connected?
Yeah, easy. So LinkedIn is my favorite. I'm obsessed with it. So yeah, I'm Steve Gradman at LinkedIn. I was early. I got it right. Cruise & Co website. I'm out there, Cruise &Co. And then a million other places. Google my name. I'm easy to find. There's not a lot of me. But I would love to chat. Not going to charge you for a chat. I got plenty of opinions. Those are always free. And then, if I can't help you out, I usually know someone that can.
Man, powerful. That is what I'm talking about. Dude, Steve, thank you so much for coming on here. Man, I just, finally realizing it's called a niche, or actually we still don't know. It's up in the air.
No, I'm niche now. If I take one thing away, it's niche.
Yeah, you know what? I'm still going to use them interchangeably and see if anyone notices. But yeah, just the free, you know what? You've given me the freedom to say, yeah, let that performance, it matters, but like, let that connection be your guide, that authentic connection. Go for it. It's scalable. Don't worry. Micro influencer. Man, this has just been a great conversation about things that, that I've, struggled with and worked on in marketing, but also am excited, to really dive into. So thank you. Thank you for coming on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a lot more fun than what I was going to do this morning. So this is great.
Well, anytime you bump into one of those mornings, let me know. We'll just hop on and record something, because
love it.
Life's too short not to podcast. Dude, for those listening, if you learned something, and I freaking know you did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes.
Wow.
First page, it was, double space, but then second page, I ran out of room, right? So I'm down here in the margins and everything. I've learned so much. I know you freaking have. Share this with one person. That's thought leadership. Get good information in other people's hands. Your friend, maybe they're trying to sell everything to everyone. Maybe they're so focused on the numbers, they forgot who they're talking to. Get this conversation in their hands. If that's you, hey, you got this. Go hard on connection in 2025. And man, thank you for listening. And Steve, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Loved it. Take care.
Crazy, everyone. This has been another exciting episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.